Yeah. So the translation is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruitive activities. So in this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is talking about how the actions that the living entities are performing are being um categorized as karma or the fruitive activities. And in this verse, in the purport actually, Srila Prabhupada says that according to one's identification with the material nature or the spiritual nature, he receives a spiritual or material body. And of course, in this material nature, we may take up any body, or among the 84 lakh of species, we may get in, our soul might get into any body. But when in the spiritual nature, we have only one body. And in material nature, we might, sometimes uh, come out as a man, demigod, animal, or, a bird, and so on, according to one's own karma. And this entire cycle is the karma cycle. And one example that Prabhupada gives is that a kid who's maybe 4 or 5 years old, he might enjoy a tricycle. And a schoolboy, he might use a bicycle. A college going student, he might use a bike. And a person who works for a company, he might use a car. So the purchasing for these vehicles requires money. And similarly, it is not enough for us to have a desire to get something. We need to deserve that particular thing. And the paying price to, get what we desire, it is called as karma. And in the same manner, just as how we buy or purchase vehicles, the soul accepts various bodily vehicles as per his or her good or bad karma. So this is the purport that is conveyed by Srila Prabhupada. So now we come to the topic of good karma and bad karma. So if a person is having a great body, he's, born in a very aristocratic family, and he has all what he wants at just fingertips, and also has a good education, all such luxuries, then he is said to have acted piously in his previous life. And that is why he is how he is now is why he's uh, performed bad karma or good karma in his previous life. And on the contrary, if a person he's just opposite to all these, then he's known to have committed some kind of sinful activity in his past. So I was listening to a lecture, and there was a small story. So there was one village, and in this village, there was a mill. So many of the villagers used to send their rice grains, and it used to get converted into powder form or the rice flour and so on. And this mill was very famous and it was profitable. So this mill owner, he had 4 sons, and all his life he spent all the profits that he had earned from the mill. He spent it by smoking and drinking. Then, at the time of his death, he was surrounded by all his family members, and the mill owner he shouted loudly, saying, "All of you are here. Then who would take care of the mill? Someone can, get into the mill and loot all the profits." And saying this, he died instantly. And in the next life, he became a rat in that same mill because he didn't worship God, at least for a moment in his previous life. And he was all the time thinking about how to smoke, or how to drink, or how to make profits from the mill so that I can spend it on drinking. So this is an example of karma. And now the concept comes called akarma. So, in simple words, any devotional activity that we perform is termed as akarma. So, for example, if you go to an ashram and you distribute rice, and that would come under the category of good karma. But if you go to an ashram and you distribute prasadam, then that would come under the category of akarma because it involves the Lord. So it is said that by performing akarma, one develops devotion for the Lord, detachment from worldly pleasures, and he gains spiritual happiness. And because the person for whom the service is performed is Lord Krishna, it is said that one can be easily liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and this love of God that he would develop, it takes one back to the spiritual world. So now there is a question that arises saying that what is the difference between good karma and what is the difference between akarma? So good karma is material and akarma is spiritual. And the fruits that good karma reaps, it gets exhausted in the future, but the fruits that are obtained from akarma activities are eternal and they're not perishable. And one can perform both good karma and akarma, but and it is recommended to perform akarma because the catch is that for reaping the fruits of good karma, we have to reincarnate in this material world. But by performing akarma, it will take one back home, back to Godhead. So, moving to the next slide. So, we might have this doubt in our mind, thinking um, there should be something or someone who administers or bears a witness to the actions that we perform. So the all these are witnessed by the Lord Krishna himself, and there are many instances in the Shastras that suggest that the super soul who is present in the Jivatma's heart is always watching. Just like in the picture, one bird is eating the fruit and the other bird is sitting silently. So the super soul who is present in the heart, he is a silent witness and he knows everything about us. So there are some things that the super soul does. He keeps track of all our karmic reactions. He puts all the good karma and bad karma into our karmic account, and he arranges for a particular body and certain situations that we get in life. So all, and he also sanctions pleasure and he sanctions pain as per what the living entity desires and he deserves. So all these are kept track and administered by the Supreme Lord who's sitting in our heart as a super soul. So now the question arises saying, can good karma cancel out my bad karma? So for example, yesterday you might have performed some sinful activity, and today when you wake up, you might uh, feel guilty and you want to repent about this and you perform certain pious activity to nullify, thinking that it will nullify my sinful activity. And the question that is arised is, can my good karma cancel out my bad karma? And the answer is no. Good karma and bad karma, they do not cancel out each other. And one must suffer all his or her good or bad karma. And the catch here is that if somehow at some point of one's life he renders service or devotional service to the Supreme Lord, then one can be liberated from all his good karma and bad karma and he's taken back to Godhead. So there is one small story of King Nriga. So it is from the Krishna book. And this story teaches us how that by performing good karma, it is alone not enough. Without the connection to Krishna, that good karma is useless. So King Nriga he was very pious and generous king, And he used to do a lot of charity to many brahmanas in his kingdom. And once, he gave a cow in charity to a brahmana, and this cow somehow it wandered back into the king's herd, and the king, he didn't know about this. And later, when another brahmana came back uh, uh, to collect donation, the king gave the same cow to the same brahmana. So the same cow was actually donated to two different brahmanas without the knowledge of the king. And later, both these brahmanas, they come to know of this, and they came back to the king and they demanded the same cow. And even though the king offered many hundreds and thousands of cows in return for that one cow, they refused to accept it. And this activity by the king made them angry, and they just silently left from the place. And it was a black mark on the activities from King Naga, and this was considered as a sinful activity. And at the time of uh, the king's death, he was given a choice. He could either enjoy all his pious activities, or can suffer his bad activities first. So the king, he chooses to suffer all his sinful reactions first. So he was immediately then turned into a lizard. And after this, the family members of Lord Krishna, Pradyumna, all of them, they go out on a excursion, or a picnic, small picnic, and they found a large lizard in the well. And the kids, Pradyumna, all of them, they could not take the lizard out, and it was brought to Krishna's notice. So when Lord Krishna came, he personally went to the well, and just by the touch of Lord Krishna's left hand, the lizard gave up its lizard shape and turned into a beautiful demigod. And then, King Naga offers his obeisances unto the Supreme Lord, and he goes back to heaven. So, in this story, we learn that because the King Naga, he had performed some pious activities in his previous life, even though there was a black mark on him, he had remembered Krishna, and he was saved from reincarnating in this world again. So, moving on to the next slide, the question now that arises is, why do bad things happen to us even though we try to do good things now? So, it is a valid question that might arise, and the answer is that our past actions bring present reactions. So, there's an example that is said by Srila Prabhupada. So, in olden day villages, like the medieval times, there were huge vertical barrels of made of certain material, and they were used to store maybe tons of rice. And these grains, they were stored from the top, and they can be taken out from the below, as you can see in the image. So suppose a farmer, he in his first year of farming, after he gains some harvest, he it is a third class grain, meaning it is not that good. So this third class grain, if you put it from the top, it would settle at the bottom. And in his next year, say, assuming that he might have got first class grain, he again refills the barrel from the top. But when he starts taking out the grains from below, the old third class grains will come out first, and only after that is emptied out, the first class grain would come out. So that is how our past actions are bringing out our present reactions. So Prabhupada also continues to tell that a small child, he cannot understand how or why this happens, but an intelligent person, he can definitely understand this. And even though a pious person who may be suffering right now in this present life, you might ask, why is he suffering even though he is pious? But he is in fact actually reaping the effects of his impious activities, which he might have performed in his previous life. So that is why bad things happen to us, even though we try to do good things now. So the next question people often ask, or even we often ask, is that why does the reaction of our karma not come in this life, and why does it have to wait for a future life to come? So the karmic reactions, most probably or most certainly, they come in the same life, but there are some actions that do not. And the following 4 points elaborate um, why, or the reason why this happens. So the first is instant and delayed karma. So we have seen that for every action that we perform, there is a reaction. So the reaction may come immediately or after some months or years or even after a very long time. So maybe for example, if you slap someone right now, you're likely to receive a slap again within the next few moments. And if a thief is caught stealing, in a marketplace, he might get caught within a few hours. And if we extend this logic to understand that karmic reactions are held in karmic account. So our good and bad karma together constitute the karmic account. And the results are they're awarded in future lifetimes in installments. So some karmic reactions can come only in certain situations. And if those situations are presently not prevailing, then these reactions will have to wait for the right time to occur. So we know one story regarding this. So there was a certain hunter. He killed 100 birds even when the parents of the birds were alive. And the hunter, he had to suffer for this sin by seeing his own 100 sons die before him. And it is said in Shastras that one can obtain a son only when one has certain stock of punya. And this is why the hunter had to perform many pious activities for about 50 lifetimes to have 100 sons. And after this, he was eligible to receive the karmic reactions of killing the birds. And we all know, obviously, this hunter was none other than King Dhritarashtra. So the second point is prarabdha karma and sanchit karma. So sanchit karma is the sum total of all our past karmic reactions. And prarabdha karma is the karmic reactions that will fall due to us in this current lifetime. So it is according to the prarabdha karma that one is born in a certain family with a certain kind of body, and he experiences happiness or distress and so on. So the third point, different karmic seeds take different times to fructify. So each karma we perform is like a seed that we sow in the soil. So each seed, it has its own nature, and it has its own time to bear fruits. For example, if we plant trees, I mean seeds of papaya or seeds of mango, apple, and so on, each will produce fruits at different times according to its own nature. So one of maybe the papaya might bear fruit very soon, and the apple tree might come after several years, and so on. So this is how the karmic seeds, it doesn't bear the fruit at the same time. It depends on the nature of the karmic reaction. Some might come immediately, some might come after a short time, and some might come after a long time. So therefore, according to the nature um, of the karmic activities, it might come in this life or in the next life. And then the next point is Nitya karma, Naimitika karma, Vihita karma, Kamya karma, and Nishiddha karma. So these are just some of the different types of karma that one encounters in his life. So Nitya Karma means prescribed daily duties, like chanting Hare Krishna, reading uh, or worshipping the Lord. All these come under Nitya Karma. And next point is Naimitika Karma. Naimitika Karma means preparing for festival or some occasional activities. Then we have Vihita Karma or ordained duties that are given to us by our authorities. For example, maybe a manager handing out work to his or her subordinates, and parents sending it is example of how parents send students, I mean their kids, to school to perform their studies, all that. And then we have Kamya Karma. So Kamya Karma is the duties which we like to do or which we do out of passion. So, for example, you might learn how to sing, you might learn how to play mridangam, or you might learn how to recite Sanskrit verses, all that come under Kamya Karma. And the last is Nishiddha Karma or prohibited activities. So, one example for this is breaking the four regulative principles. So, all these are different types of karma which we encounter in one's life. So now we have looked at all kinds of karma. So let us look into the solution. So there's one analogy given in one of the lectures I was just hearing. So just as a cashier, he starts counting money for a bank. He might give loans and accept big sum on behalf of the bank, but he is not touched or he is aloof from it. So the moment he, meddles with the money for his own purposes, he'll be punished. So similarly, the living entity who works on behalf of the Lord, he is not subjected to the law of karma. But if we act independently for the purpose of sense gratification, that is when karma begins to act up. And we also know that in the Bhagavad Gita, I assume it is the fifth chapter, the Lord says that we need to be like a lotus leaf, and we need to chant Hare Krishna, read scriptures, honor prasadam, and engage in devotional service. And when we do all these without any attachment and surrender the results to the Supreme Lord, that is when we are not affected by the sinful actions or the karmic activities. And that is how we can go back home, back to Godhead. So, with this, I would like to conclude today's discussion, and I would like to humbly thank everyone for their patient listening. Hare Krishna.